The question of how and why the United Nations is the crux of the great conspiracy to destroy the sovereignty of the United States and the enslavement of the American people within a UN one-world dictatorship is a complete and unknown mystery to the vast majority of the American people. The reason for this unawareness of the frightening danger to our country and to the entire free world is simple. The masterminds behind this great conspiracy have absolute control of all of our mass communications media, especially television, the radio, the press, and Hollywood. We all know that our State Department, the Pentagon, and the White House have brazenly proclaimed that they have the right and the power to manage the news, to tell us not the truth, but what they want us to believe. They have seized that power on orders from their masters of the great conspiracy. And the objective is to brainwash the people into accepting the phony peace bait to transform the United States into an enslaved unit of the United Nations one world government. We are supposed to believe that the international bankers of today, like the money changers of Christ's day, are only the tools or agents of the great conspiracy, but actually they are the masterminds behind all of it. While the general public has been brainwashed by all the mass communications media into believing that communism is a movement of the so-called workers, the actual fact is that both British and American intelligence officers have authentic documentary evidence that international liberals operating through their international banking houses, particularly the House of Rothschild, have financed both sides in every war and revolution since 1776. America's money system. Number two, find desirable men who, for a price, would be willing to serve as stooges for the great conspiracy and promote them into high places in our federal government, our Congress, in the U.S. Supreme Court, and all federal agencies. Whites and blacks. Number four, create a movement to destroy religion in the United States, but Christianity to be the chief target. Why war? Simple. The only excuse for a one-world government is that it will supposedly ensure peace. The only thing that can make people cry for peace is war. War brings chaos, destruction, exhaustion, to winner as well as to loser. It brings economic ruin to both. Most important, it destroys the flower of the young manhood of both. To the saddened and heartbroken oldsters, the mothers and fathers, who are left with nothing but memories of their beloved sons, peace becomes worth any price. And that is the emotion upon which the conspirators depend for the success of their satanic plot. World War III is to be fomented by using the so-called controversies the agents of the Illuminati, operating under whatever new name, are now stirring up between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Muslim world. That war is to be directed in such a manner that all of Islam and political Zionism, Israel, will destroy each other, while at the same time the remaining nations, once more divided on this issue, will be forced to fight themselves into a state of complete exhaustion, physically, mentally, spiritually, and economically. Now, can any thinking person doubt that the intrigue now going on in the Near, Middle, and Far East is designed to accomplish that satanic objective? Pike himself foretold all this in a statement he made to Mazzini on August 15, 1871. Pike stated that after World War III is ended, those who will inspire to undisputed world domination will provoke the greatest social cataclysm the world has ever known. Quoting his own words, taken from the letter he wrote to Mazzini, and which letter is now catalogued in the British Museum in London, England, he said, "We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a great social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to all nations the effect of absolute atheism, the origin of savagery and of most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the people forced to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitudes disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will be from that moment on without direction and leadership, and anxious for an ideal but without knowledge where to send its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer brought finally out into public view, a manifestation which will result from a general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time.
It sounds like I'm saying it as if he said it that proper. And like, so to think, you have to understand that even as properly saying you dare use that name, that the voice that he used in saying it was a roaring, yelling, a very intimidating like voice. It was like a you dare use that name, and it was so something similar like that, but heightened. I'm not doing a good job of saying it the same exact way, but it was basically infuriated that I even was saying Jesus as I was down there, and from what I was saying, and he was like, you dare use that name, you dare use that, and he began cursing at me, like, so it was like cursing at me at the same time, like, you dare use that name, blah, blah, and so even now, by seeing the eye alone, I was so frantically scared already, and the only thing in my mind was, this is Lucifer, this is the devil, this is Lucifer here yelling at me, in the form of an eye, though, just the form of an eye. I'm like, but so it seemed like as if he wasn't, his presence is somewhat throughout all hell.
Say a man reaps what he sows, but I guess some seeds never grow. I'm seeing my reflection in the tombstone sky, Red moon cackling, hanging high with the silver cross against my skin. I'm booking a room at the Black Horse Inn. Hat pulled down to hide my face. One more dollar for the human race. Rosie, Rosie, what can I say? They always find ways to make you pay. There's a solemn breeze at the dock of the bay, but I'm too many minutes past Judgment Day. As she turns toward me, I divert my eyes to a cigarette, smoke to the filter. The unstoppable movie, the embers of time, and dreams a dream with missing letters. I feel every breath. Is it your breath or mine that keeps me here beneath the stormy weather? To kiss your lips and cling to care. Lean out your window, golden hair, to touch your thigh and leave this night. Your movements as divine as light. I heard the mule kicking in your stall. I almost thought that I had it all. I left the bullet in the amber hall, like a child that never learned to crawl. And I have nothing left to give you, no fig leaves here to hide the truth. Spend my last ticket when the stars weren't looking. I keep on trying to get through. Final glare with his dirty Woodrow Wilson stare. And I can't stand to see him in the morning, unlocking the door just one more time. Another bedroom of forgotten rhymes, where all my memories soar of the sheets, the ghost of things we could not keep. I put it on behind me now. No fancy words or wedding vows. The road's too narrow, too overgrown. The memory begins and ends alone. And I've nothing left to give No fig leaves here to hide the truth. Spend my last ticket when the stars weren't looking. I keep on trying to get through. Somewhere in this sacred land, a friend begins to weep. See you lifeless on the ground and say that you're asleep. We all know who shot you down, but there's no reason to speak. So I take another breath of thought and continue down the street. In stranger ways of twisted tongues, I continue down the street.
And in this phase, I'm always reminded very strongly of the parallel that we find in the writings of Jacob Demy, the German mystic of Görlitz. This shoemaker gives us a very interesting parallel of the relations between God and demon. Because we are carried in the allegory or in the fable out into space. And in space we find one brooding figure, standing upon a great cloud with folded wings of sable hue, a great brooding figure leaning upon a sword and standing looking out into the infinite. And this brooding figure is Satan. And this brooding figure is almost divine in its own right. For within it is not only the creative power of God, but the infinite courage and strength of the divine will. And this being has come out of the mysteries of outer space to stand before the throne of the Almighty and to offer itself as a vassal of God. And it stands there and it speaks. And it sends its voice out into the great mysterious darkness that lies about it, out towards one softly roseate cloud that seems to be hovering over the great vistas of space like some dim northern light. And the powerful angel calls out and asks God to reveal himself. And out of the cloud and out of the mystery and out of the darkness comes the voice of a baby, a very tiny child. And this voice of the child, so faint, so small, so gentle, as to hardly be audible, says, "Yes, did you wish to speak to me?" And in that moment, Satan is so completely shocked and so completely baffled that he leans upon his sword and thinks, is this voice, this child voice, this voice alone in space, is this God? And if this is God, what can we expect of divinity? Here are all the clouds, the stars, and the cosmos. Are they to be managed and directed by a small child? Where is the glorious court of heaven? Where are the choirs of the angels and the archangels and the seraphs and the cherubim? Where are the principalities and the powers and the dominions? Nothing there but the voice of a child, speaking gently in the voice of love. The Satan says to himself, I guess I'd better do something about this. This is no way to run a universe. And if this is the measure of things, I think I'd better take over. So in this moment, Satan rebels against the Lord. And in this moment, when in his mind comes the thought, I will take over, I will be the King of Kings and the ruler of the world, in that instant, the heavens are shattered from edge to edge. The sky rolls back. The clouds break open. And out of this mist and darkness and out of these rosy shadows, there bursts a light that strikes upon Satan with such a tremendous power that he is cast down upon his knees. And there suddenly before him, in all of its effulgent glory, is the God of might and the God of battles. The soft voice has disappeared, and now stands all the glory of the armies of the Lord under the psychopompos of the archangel Michael. And here are the hosts of heaven in their golden armor, and an ineffable glory and an ineffable strength beyond all human understanding. And Satan cannot understand. He does not know what has happened. And the voice explains to him that when he came in gentleness and humility of speech and appeal, he was brought into the presence of the great meekness, which is God. For God is always the gentle voice to those who come in obedience. God is always the voice that is almost impossible to hear, the childish little voice of those who obey. But the moment there comes into the mind of man arrogance, worldliness, and power, the God of meekness disappears, and there is beheld the vassals of wrath. In that instant the sky opens, and the power of the heavens is revealed in all its glory. Not because heaven has changed, but because rebellion has changed the sight of the one who beheld it. The glory was always there, but the meek in heart see only the meekness, but the proud behold only the wrath. And this was the battle between the divine mind and the mortal mind, between the will of heaven and the will of man. And in this great battle, man by disobedience released the wrath and came under the power of the retribution of natural law. Man knows of no laws until he breaks them. Man knows of no wrath until he disobeys. Man is not aware that there is in the universe anything but beauty until he breaks the law. And this was Bailey's expression or interpretation of the rebellion and the fall of the archangel Lucifer and his hosts, and the great war in heaven. And this in substance is also the burden of the concept in Faust, because the two stories have almost identical meaning. Faust, in his original sincerity, was searching for the world of God. When he could not find it, he rebelled. And in his mental rebellion, his discouragement, his resignation to negative inevitableness, he opened himself to the retribution of mortal mind. And mortal mind, or selfish mind, represented by Mephisto, becomes a serpent. But mortal mind leads man only to self-destruction, leads him only to ways of darkness and evil, and finally results in his complete undoing. In the end of the first part of the play, however, this false thinking having brought Faust to the lowest pitch of tragedy, we find the revulsion taking place within himself. The revulsion which finally, through a kaleidoscopic series of circumstances, brings him back again to the recognition that the good man, even in his infirmity, will cling unto the Lord who made him be, and that he will find in the end the only answer to the whole great conflict, and that answer is simple faith. The simple acceptance of truth itself as a principle, whether he can possess it, know it, or understand it or not. The simple return to obedience. And the moment he obeys, the wrath vanishes and the power of the tempter is destroyed. So by returning to the original destiny and the nature which was his proper place in the world, the entire mystery or story is brought to its magnificent and dramatic conclusion.